What's up, everybody?
Hey, everybody. Hi.
Hey.
Welcome to Jet.
Yeah, we're back. Look at in these new surroundings. How there's so much going on.
And today we are on Prose.
Where did we leave off?
We left off on drama.
Okay.
So we'd gone through poetry and then via drama to the arrival of prose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, prose predates the arrival of prose. It's kind of
the written word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we decided to kind of think of prose as in the rise of the novel, which was very much a kind of late 18th century kind of arrival. So yeah, that's the focus of today.
Mm-hmm. Now, why did it come so much later than these other ideas of prose, of poetry and drama?
It's a very good question. I think prose was considered a kind of a lower art form. It required less kind of artifice and expertise. Kind of essentially anyone could write prose, and even the word prose, prosaic, it literally means the kind of the base, kind of simplest form of expression. Whereas poetry, the whole point of poetry is that it's an elevated style. Drama has all of these constraints we talked about last time of kind of you have to have an awareness of the fact that you can't have an inner monologue, you can't have a narrator, you can't have this kind of omniscient description of things, etc. So it was kind of considered harder and therefore lower stakes, lower prestige. And then obviously when it arrived, it was called the novel. Novel meaning new. Yeah.
So were people looking down on novel writers like, oh, you simples writing
Very much
novels?
so. Very much so, yeah.
Okay.
And it was there's always been this kind of pattern, and we talked about it last time, didn't we? How kind of we have a kind of hierarchy of prestige when it comes to the different forms. But now I think this is kind of a really important thing to note. Nobody's reading poetry. Very few people are attending the theatre. What people are reading these days, it is all prose. Yeah. It's all novels. I don't know anyone who's consuming poetry in any form other than poetry to music, i.e. songs, and theatre. Very rarely actually going to a theatre and more likely just watching films and TV, which are kind of that version. So prose really has become this kind of high art form because people who read novels are considered higher brow than people who listen to music and people who watch films and TV.
I mean, is that partly, I guess, to do with the portability of novels? You know, like, I guess, I mean, a poem is portable too, but poetry for a lot of people is a little bit frightening, right? You know, like it can be the meaning is so hidden or coded or obtuse, and can I really get into this in the way that I want to? Whereas, you know, a book is, you know, we're told from a young age, read books, you know, go out there, read a book, pick a book up. And so you have a kind of, you can take it with you, you can go wherever you need to be and have a book. It's a little different, I guess, to drama, which we discussed about, like, you know, the fact that really you should be seeing it performed and not just reading it on a page, which as teachers we're all kind of guilty of with the things that we have to you know, kind of read to students. I just think that there's something kind of magical, isn't there, about prose and novels. You can be anywhere in any time, in any place. You can be on the train, you can be on the bus, you can be in a park, you can be, you know, and you can be transported, as it were. So, it kind of seems strange to me that when this medium emerged, that people were a little bit snooty.
Yeah, I think it was the ease, wasn't it? And also its association with women. You know, men wrote poetry and drama, and women played about with stories. There's kind of this kind of
folk
tale,
moral ideas as well with them.
Exactly, yeah. And so you have kind of we mentioned this briefly when we were discussing our current reads, this idea of kind of like pseudonymy, where we had lots of early female writers were writing under pseudonyms to kind of skim over the fact that they were women and therefore get more people to read it. And you had a lot of, I guess because of the latitude of prose, you had a lot of people who were kind of hack writers. And a lot of Victorians were accused of hack writing, which is kind of like very lowest common denominator, broad strokes. This is for everyone in society. And that, because of the elitism of this kind of field of study that we're in, people were just like, nah, that's not for us. But you could call it political, couldn't you? If you think back to when we did our verse conversation, did we talk about Chaucer?
I think we did,
Yeah.
briefly.
Because that, like, what makes Chaucer, and the reason that we still study him, even though he was mostly writing about farting and infidelity, is that he decided to write in English rather than these elevated styles. And it's the same thing here, choosing to write in prose rather than these elevated styles so that more people can access it. Politically feels like a good thing rather than a watering down of the aesthetics.
And that seems to make sense with kind of what's regarded as the most, like the first few novels of import. So
What have you got?
Don Quixote, 1605.
Wow.
Yeah.
In English, Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah.
So these ideas of kind of flawed characters in a realistic, to a certain point, setting, engaged with the ideas of the time.
Definitely,
which makes sense.
Because like, most of them, they are kind of the Bildungsroman, aren't they?
Yeah.
That kind of coming of age novel, and kind of lots of the other very early examples, like I want to say like Tristram Shandy, and a few others of that kind of late 18th century time in English certainly were very much like zeitgeisty, like that kind of spirit of the time and coming of age. So the individual, the normal person, and I guess that gave rise to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like realism. And that was one of the things that prose did a lot, was like, let's go with what's real, what's happening.
Yeah. And interesting, because it seems like a lot of people who like reading novels use that as an escape, but then we're thinking about these novels as reflecting, if we're thinking about sort of contemporary novels for us, things that are actually reflecting our lives. I don't know, I started to notice lots of texts and emails in new books that I'm reading as well,
definitely.
which seems kind of jarring in a different way than I expect.
Yeah, it's like, no, thank you. I didn't come. I have enough emails to work my way through in my own life.
I wonder if there was if that was the same. I'm trying to think of like, sort of early 20th century or even mid 20th century novels, and like the introduction of various technologies and how they were kind of incorporated into the writing, whether people reading them then were like, oh, why are you talking about the radio? Why are you bringing in like TV screens? Oh, it's kind of cringe.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, this is a slight tangent, but even on the television, how writers and directors incorporate phones and texts and emails into the screen, because they're such a big part of our life now. To not have them there would be kind of strange.
It would,
so you have to include them, or else people are going to be like, well, this isn't very realistic. But I'm similar to you. I don't like turning a page and suddenly you can see it's like a load of space, and then sometimes they try and mimic like the Apple
text bubble,
text box, or even like the red message sign, and it's like, could this be achieved just by describing? Or I don't know, because,
like reported rather than direct,
right? Precisely, and like a stylistic choice to actually have it make it appear like an actual text.
I suppose that makes sense though if we're thinking about the 20th century, because of the rise of dystopian fiction then as well. Like Fahrenheit 451, where the TV screen is huge, a whole wall, which we now have, and it's sort of sucking you in, and it's 5-minute content or 1-minute stories on that, which is, again, seemed ludicrous, I imagine, at the time, but now is kind of long form content for us online at this point.
5-minute video, it's like, wow, that's a lot of time that I'm about to invest into this.
What I think is quite interesting here is that when we talk about this kind of escapism versus verisimilitude, there's an enormous market for fantasy and romantasy. If you walk into any bookshop, any bookshop selling currently popular books, secondhand bookshops aside, the biggest section in any of those, unless they're specialized bookshops, are the romantasy section, which is wild to me. But I mean, clearly that's this escapism, that's this desire for escapism, and you've got to wonder whether that's a response to
the political climate, social political climate as well. I think that makes sense, because I know 2016 the most commonly bought book was 1984, which makes a little bit of sense with those kind of turmoil that people felt on so many different wavelengths in that time. And for it now to be romantic, see that kind of, it's not dystopian anymore, it's something escaping the realities and the warnings, because
we've got enough dystopia around us, guys.
That dire energy is now present for us. It's not
although possibly different. Now people would be more drawn to, like, you know, the Winston and, is it Julia? It's the name of
Julia, yes.
Like the kind of the because it kind of is a mini romance in there, like thrown into the middle of it. And of course, you know, it's symbolic of like human connection and like trying to feel something. I mean, romanticy isn't a surprise when, I guess, you know, there's a lot of like conversation around people's loneliness and, you know, the way that technology, rather than bringing us together, has actually pulled us apart.
Yeah.
The one that I tend to notice at the library, because, you know, obviously libraries sort of, you know, they want people to take out their books, right? Is all of these kind of book talk inspired things, like red covers. So that, like when I went in last week, it was just the front, you know, they have these like pick a book up, and the front one was just like, here are some red books. It was just red books. They had no like red covers.
Right. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So it's like nothing to do with like, you know, pick up a fantasy novel. It's just like literally
the aesthetic of reading rather than reading
like
itself.
All of these red covers look really cool, you know, and
well, the romantasy covers are beautiful, and they're all almost identical. Like they've got like a very dark base color, and then what looks like, you know, like creeping ivy of unnatural colors, and then like and they all look kind of the same, but also very beautiful. So like the aesthetic clearly plays into it, and I guess that has a lot to do with book talk. Like if you hold up a front cover of something
and it looks
don't judge a book by a cover, but also stop scrolling when you see a pretty cover.
But this don't judge a book. I mean, covers are like as iconic as the books themselves. Think about that first edition of Gatsby, you know, that kind of blue and like it's almost inseparable from the book itself. You know, and like covers and that whole medium of like production. Because if you think, like, in the, I don't know what the front cover of Don Quixote was in 1605, but I don't imagine that they're like
probably a lot of text,
right? Yeah, I don't think they'd captured onto like the marketability of these things yet. You know,
well, no, because it was still exclusive, and a 1,000-page book is not going to be the one that everyone's buying, other than using it as a paving stone.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be interested. I don't
story. I love it.
Should have just called it Man versus Windmill. That would have brought people more in.
There we go.
I'm trying to think if I don't know what the first cover, you know, like book cover was.
I don't know. Well, this does bring to mind, though, that there was an artist who made sort of special edition books that were relevant to the content. So I keep bringing up Fahrenheit 451 because it's been staying with me the last 6 months or so.
Can't imagine
since
why.
I last read it. No, knows why. And the book itself came with sort of pop-out matches and the spine of the book. So this part of the book here was match paper.
Oh,
so
nice.
it was this idea that you read it and then set it alight yourself. It's like this continuation of the idea, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
That's really interesting, yeah. I feel like it potentially missed the point of how bad that feature was of the novel.
Well, clearly from me not being able to stop thinking about it, it has been something that has changed my mindset and is powerful, which is possibly this idea of it being controlled.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like that starts to come back because, you know, like it is somewhat of a crowded market because of, again, the influence of social media and these certain texts, like, you know, a new edition of 1984 is coming out. And I think wasn't the most recent Penguin one. It was like even the title of the novel had a big like black sort of cover on it, like obscure,
like redacted, rescinded.
Like
you know, so it's like those kind of things, like responding to like repackaging the same thing but in a new way to attract a new audience. You know, you're probably going to start to see more of these, like, I don't know, scratch and sniff, you know, copies of books because
I mean, call it what it is. Like it is a gimmick.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
And the gimmick, when in the capitalist world that we live in, that's going to be what draws people in. It's going to make it stand out from a crowd. It's going to make it book talk worthy.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking, I guess that goes back to novels. Like that's exclusively for novels because they were the thing that was sellable with the printing press.
Yeah,
exactly.
So something that could be consumed quickly and exchanged and.
Yeah, I just don't think I mean, thinking back to our conversations around drama and poetry, I don't think that they elicit this much that like conversation in a way, because books are so, simultaneously influential, but also, like manageable in a way. I don't think that sometimes, as to come back to what I was saying earlier, like poetry and drama is.
Yeah, despite typically being longer.
Yeah. But people love getting into a book. They
do.
That thing like, I'm deep in the book right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Sometimes, like, I'm thinking like something is like Game of Thrones. I'm not the biggest like fantasy guy, but those, they're like each 900 odd pages long. Yeah. But I, years ago when I read them, I had them done in like 3 weeks because like, and that's the nature is
takes over you.
Yeah. It just precisely. And it just pulls you in and you don't notice the number of pages going by because it's just, you're in it. Whereas like trying to read, I don't know, Wallace Stevens or, Idea Order at Key West, that's like 3 pages, but it feels like 39, just because of the dense and the depth of, I mean, it's a great poem, don't get me wrong, but it's that kind of, it's different, isn't it? In that respect.
Yeah. Time is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also probably why it's harder to have multiple novels on the go, whereas you can have lots of TV series, lots of various other media forms.
I'm always one who's got different books going.
Are you? Yeah. I really struggle. I'm like, I need to just immerse myself in this one before I can let it go.
I used to be like that. Yeah. I used to, but recently, similarly, I'm like, I've got like a fiction, a non-fiction, a collection of essays. I feel like because I can only really squeeze my reading time into like
that's so fair.
The final 25 minutes of the day, and even then I can do like a page and a half and fall asleep. I feel really like I'm never going to get through all of the things that I want to, so I'm going to have to juggle these.
Yeah. Shall we round off then on that note with? I'm thinking about our last podcast.
Yeah.
What are we currently reading or have just finished?
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Shall I begin?
You shall.
I'm reading The Road to Wigan Pier.
Nice.
George Orwell. I'm just on a big Orwell kind of kick at the moment.
Again, wonder why.
Yeah, wonder why. Well, I was drawn through his discussions about like Englishness, and that's obviously we're in a particularly fraught political moment.
Yeah.
And often you find with all sorts of things, not just with Englishness, but with all, like a lot of these conversations have been had before and keep coming back.
Yeah.
But Road to Wigan Pier is essentially, he embeds himself in with the miners and lives basically with miners in Wigan. And it just sort of examines their lives. And it's very like, this is where they live, this is their houses, this is their day at work, this is their family relationships. But I don't know, it's just the living conditions of these miners. Like there are still people living like this today.
Yeah.
With houses. I mean, I was just reading about, like rats in Croydon and things like this. You think that this stuff is gone, but it's not. And and I think it's just often worth reminding yourselves through things like that about how little has changed. So not the most uplifting read, but fascinating.
Nice.
How about you, Al?
I am just starting the Thursday Murder Club because I love a bit of crime detective fiction, and I've gone through all the John le Carré this year.
Nice. Oh, cool.
So that was my sort of new fiction moment. And then I'm also reading this biography of Thomas Hardy that I love because that's my favourite author.
Oh, me too.
What have you learned about Hardy that you didn't know?
It's quite a lot. He's such a sort of long and complicated life, and it's so detailed. I'm still in his sort of early architecture student days where he was walking an hour and a half each way to work, I suppose, to his apprenticeship. But that idea of sort of the silence and the sound in Hardy and thinking about all this time he was spending walking through country roads in Devon.
Yeah. Love that.
That makes sense.
I wonder if he would have liked a podcast to listen to, or if part of the, or if he had that, would he ever have, ended up writing in the.
This is what I keep thinking is, do we ever sit for an hour and a half with no entertainment, or walk for an hour and a half with nothing, just
Not
listening
really.
to the scuffle of your feet?
So rarely. The only time I ever do it is when I'm walking the dog. And I've decided not to listen to stuff while I'm walking him, so I can kind of be present. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there is something, isn't there, that like the amount of content that we have and that we consume is like killing being bored, but like being bored has been such a driver of things getting done in the past, because how do you not be bored anymore? You do something.
Exactly.
Whereas now, how do we not be bored anymore? We consume something.
It's really good to be bored, particularly for young people.
How about you, Louis?
I finished just after saying I never read 2 books at the same time. I finished 2 books that I was reading, exception to the rule. So one was Our Wives Under the Sea, which is about a woman whose wife is a submariner, I guess, and gets stuck under the sea in a submarine for like 6 months. And when she comes back, she has changed in all sorts of ways, and it turns out to have kind of a supernatural twist, which is really cool. I haven't read much of that in recent years. And then the other one was No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood.
I've definitely seen that, but I agree.
She's amazing. I went to a talk of hers to promote her new book the other day, and she I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but American.
Okay.
That kind of and this the whole of this this first book that I read, it's told almost in kind of like snapshot, almost like tweets, because it's all about being chronically online. And then the second half of the book takes this major twist, and it's all kind of autofiction, and you see a serious event, which is the birth of a profoundly disabled child that is her niece, and kind of the few months that they have before it passes away. And it goes from this unbelievably unserious, silly, hilarious kind of internet pastiche into this kind of really serious one. It's quite an interesting meditation on what we take seriously and how we spend our time and energy. So yeah, highly recommend those 2.
Nice. Cool. Well, thanks for listening to us talk prose, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.